Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with Pre-Singles Counseling. This is part of my Pre-Singles Counseling Coaching Curriculum, where I design lessons and case studies based in the psychology literature on different topics. This Pre-Singles Counseling is targeted to three types of individuals. The first individual is a person who is interested in becoming single. That means that person is not necessarily interested in dating or entering the marriage market. The second individual is a single individual who is interested in entering the dating market. And then the last individual is a single dating individual who is interested in marriage. So take some time to listen to this lesson and or case study. Please leave a comment and I will reply. In addition, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell if you are interested in further topics. This is Pre-Singles Counseling, a Pre-Singles Counseling Coaching Curriculum. Thank you for visiting the channel. This lesson is subject to fair use, where I will comment, criticize, offer research, as well as teach and provide scholarship. By the end of this lesson, students will be able to do the following. They will be able to define the alpha male, explain why the alpha male thrives in the sex market, define the sex market, define the marriage market, analyze why the alpha male resists the marriage market, and then define the dating rotation. Single women should be knowledgeable about the alpha male competing in the mating markets, both sex and marriage markets. Alpha males thrive in the sex markets, but they are not averse to mate poaching married partners. Today's mating market includes both men and women forming dating rotations as insecure romantic attachments to alleviate the burden of forming committal relationships. Single women should understand that alpha males substitute one vision for another and are more likely to be active than productive. What is pre-singles counseling? Pre-singles counseling is based in a decision to enter or exit singleness. Pre-singles is the time period between single and contemplation of dating. There is a difference between being a single individual and being a single individual who has entered the dating market, which includes the sex market. Pre-singles counseling is the processes by which an individual researches, learns, and plans to navigate life either as a single, a dating single, or a single interested in marriage. So here are some pre-discussion questions. What is an alpha male? What is the sex ratio hypothesis? What is the sex market? What is the marriage market? What is arm's length relational bonding? Why do alpha males struggle with validating romantic relationships? What is cost-inflicting mate retention behavior? And then what are the definitions for self-control, grit, fixed mindset, and growth mindset? So I'm not quite sure how familiar you are with Carol Dweck's book on mindset, but this is the first time I am including it within one of the audios in this series. And it is essentially outlining how we approach a goal in terms of our mindset. Self-control and grit, comes from Angela Lee Duckworth, so I'm not quite sure if you're familiar with her as well, but you can always research her. And she's basically outlining the difference between self-control and grit, that they are not really interchangeable, that self-control is more about controlling momentary impulses, and grit is more about achievement. It's not so much about success, because success is momentary. Grit is about taking and solving and planning and researching a single problem and basically devoting your life to it for years, even decades. So we're going to get into all of these topics in this audio. So here is a pre-lecture note just to make sure that you have a good understanding about how this lecture is organized. So we're going to cover alpha males and how they thrive in the sex market, how they are territorial, how they do not validate, how I believe that cheating is their new productivity, and that I conclude that they will eventually burn out. That's why I believe they do not win in the end. The goal is to outline the character of alpha males and why they do not win in the end, largely because of their character. So, what is an alpha male? Let's look at the belief system and their guiding policy. So, they do believe that they are high value mating partners. They tend to only seek out other high value mating partners. They tend to look for the 9s and 10s. Their mate value is self-perceived, but generally socially and culturally affirmed as a result of facial and physical attractiveness. So even if they are perceived as high value, and by extension as alpha male, that is sort of like their self-perception, but their physical attractiveness and maybe their high value in terms of the career that they have chosen is their confirmation that they are a high value mating partner, and then by extension an alpha male. Alpha males can switch when a higher value partner becomes available, so that speaks to their own particular prerogative. They can also cultivate a backup mate when they want to implement sexual affairs as a form of mate insurance. So, if one mate is not acting the way they want, they can always cultivate multiple backup mates, and they usually have backup mates on deck. Alpha males prefer multiple dating and sexual options, so it is their preference. There are 4 levels of mating situations. So there is the single date partner, the sexual only partner, the steady dating partner, and then the marriage partner. Alpha males tend to be opposed to marriage partnerships. Now, if you see someone today who is an alpha male, or you believe he is an alpha male because of, I don't know, maybe, he is the CEO of a company or something like that. He wasn't like that before. So even if you see him married today, it is likely that he married that person 10, 15, 20 years ago, and then now you see the fruits of his labor of working very hard to get somewhere, and now he's a millionaire or a billionaire. When you think about, say, for instance, Jeff Bezos, and I'm not saying he's not going to marry the person that he had an affair with, but he was married to his ex for many years before he made it. And he was nowhere near an alpha male at that time. Now that he has become Amazon, basically Amazon, I mean, he is Amazon, he is considered a high value male as well as an alpha male. And so by extension, his wife was considered in all respects, because of his status, an alpha female. But the woman that he cheated on her with was really just average. She might look like she thinks she's alpha or something like that, but she's very, very average looking. She doesn't seem to have the same type of class that his ex-wife had, and you don't really hear of him contemplating marriage with her. Now that he is single and dating, I don't know for certain if he's ever going to marry her. But they tend to be opposed to marriage partnerships, meaning that if they never married and then they made it big, they might be less likely to marry. If whoever they marry, it has to be someone of real substance, someone maybe not so ambitious, or could be ambitious, be a CEO of a company or something, but they would want that person to be uh, preferably younger, trophy wife, and dedicated to him. So here is a reflection opportunity. Do you consider yourself as an alpha female? And that's something to think about. What criteria do you base your self-perceived assessment? Unless someone comes along and labels you an alpha female, you're basically labeling yourself as an alpha female. So then what criteria are you considering? Are you considering your economics, your class status, your finances, the fact that you are connected to a family with a brand name? What are those, particular criteria you are basing your assessment? Do you believe that alpha females should only date alpha males? Is an alpha female perfect without the need for improvement? So when we consider ourselves alpha female, alpha male, and I don't consider myself as alpha female and alpha male, and I'm not necessarily a high value partner in terms of finances, so I don't fit that category just yet either. But when we call ourselves certain things, it's almost like we feel like we have reached the pinnacle of success or something like that, and so therefore we are alpha, and therefore we don't always feel like we need to improve. I mean, after all, we are alpha, but there's always a need for improvement at every level, at every stage in life. So that's something that I want you to think about in terms of if you think you are perfect without the need for improvement. So let's look at how alpha males thrive. They tend to thrive in the sex market. We understand that there are two markets, two mating markets, the sex and the marriage market. People who want to have sex, they tend to be in the sex market. People who want to marry, they tend to be in the marriage market. So the mating market is a social exchange where sex is considered the economic product. So it tends to be bifurcated into the following. So there are more men in the sex market. Okay, that means that there are less men in the marriage market, and then there are more women in the marriage market, which means that there are less women in the sex market. This changes, however, as people change, as people age, because they tend to drift towards the marriage market when it is maybe when they turn a certain age, especially in our 40s. Somehow we begin to feel our mortality. We realize that we are not really invincible. And we also realize and reflect on those past relationships that really had no true value in our lives. And we begin to seek out value. Whatever we had in our 20s and 30s, we don't want. We want something or someone that we know that we can depend on. So in our 20s and 30s, it was all about instability. In our 40s, 50s, and 60s, and so on, it becomes about stability. Men and women may and do participate in both markets, whether married or unmarried. That's why you see a lot of these open marriages. I still call it cheating. I still consider it cheating until you are completely divorced through the courthouse. You have signed the divorce papers. They have been filed. You receive the divorce decree. Until all those factors are true, you are still married. And I would encourage any woman, any single woman, any married woman to not date a married man, because that person does not belong to you. It doesn't matter whether they agree that he can step out or she can step out. Usually men will agree that they can step out, but they won't agree that their woman can step out, right? It's okay for them. So I would just encourage you to understand that married people do what married people do, and they have every right to pursue married things. So even if you decide to try to date a married man, there's no guarantee that he's going to leave his wife. And the way things are so unstable today, as it was back then, these men are not going to leave the comfort of their home as a way to go into the unknown with you. So the sex market, in the sex market, women have what men want, which is sex. Uh, Men have what women want, which is commitment. Men typically must give something, such as compliments, promises, and or commitment to gain sexual access. They can feign commitment, but then once they get the sex, abandon that goal. Sex and dating and romantic relationships does not begin until women decide it does. They are the sexual gatekeepers, but men are also the commitment gatekeepers. So if they choose not to commit, whether they have had sex with you or not, that is also their prerogative. For both men and women today, sex does not necessarily mean marriage. Uh, there are more men in the sex market, which means there is a lack of commitment because of an oversupply of women. So, what do alpha males do in the sex market? They tend to derive physical pleasure from sex than women. Then they tend to want it more. They will initiate sexual activity more than women, fantasize about sex, masturbate, um, and they also tend to be more sexually permissive, almost to the point of risk taking. They will put all their effort and energy and intention into pursuing potential partners. They are more likely to create and maintain a dating rotation, cultivate some backup mates, and encourage sexual affairs as a form of mate insurance when it becomes time to mate switch. So what that basically means is they're not willing to leave the relationship until they know for certain that they have another relationship on deck. Even in, I believe, a dating rotation situation, it takes some time to secure the attitudes of each of those women. You will always have one or more women who sort of disagree with the lifestyle of being in a dating rotation, even if they decide to stay. It's just something about, why can't we just be together ourselves? I can give you all the sex you want if you want it, but why do I have to share you? And so the dating rotation allows men to be able to cultivate backup mates as a form of mate insurance. So if you have a rotation of 6 women and one decides that she doesn't want to remain in a relationship in a rotation, then you have 5 more to deal with and work on until you get the 6th one. So it is their way of ensuring that they don't go without, in a sense. What alpha males do not give in the sex market, they do not give romance or commitment. They do not express love or give attention, affirmation, or validation, and they offer no relationship security. So it's almost like the pimp or the prostitute, right? Either one. The prostitute is not there to be a companion. Usually if you want a companion and you have the money, you tend to maybe secure an escort, a really, really high level escort, right? She still may give you sex, but she looks good on the arm. But like the pimp might claim that he's there for the prostitute, but he's really not there to give the prostitute romance or commitment. No love, no attention, no affirmation. If anything, the only thing that he can guarantee is that he's going to abuse her, to keep her in the fold, right? To keep her, it's like a false sense of shepherding, to keep her among the other sheep. So alpha males do not express or receive love, give attention, affirmation, or validation. However, I look at alpha males in this way too. They don't want to give those things to you, but they want you to be committed to them. And you don't even have to be an alpha male sometimes. Sometimes just men in general, they don't want to be a husband to you, but they want you to perform wifely duties. And this is all before marriage. Now, you haven't even married the person yet, but they want you to be a wife instead of actually being a wife legally. Alpha males do not give in the sex market. They tend to be malleable sexually when they are advancing their sexual needs, and they tend to want their sexual way. So their sexual way could be open-ended. Whatever you start off believing about the alpha male, it's going to change throughout the course of the relationship or whatever you have. So if their sexual way is a sexual preference, say for anal sex, you're going to have to come off anal sex, or you can always end your relationship with that alpha male. If their sexual way is, say, like being a part of the or participating in the bondage lifestyle, you're going to eventually have to be roped up, tied up, sexed, triggered in other types of ways. If you don't want that and you understand that's what they do, then you should pull out of the sex market. Do not date the alpha male, because as much as they believe that they are high value, they're still very insecure, and they like the power trips that they use on women. I don't particularly agree with certain types of sexual acts, especially if you're not married, because then you sex me in that way, you exercise and employ your sexual preferences, and then after that, you cast me aside. So then I'm left by myself with a trauma body, triggered and almost addicted, to the point that now I'm going to look for those things that you did to me in other partners. And I think some things should be kept in the marital context, because at least when you feel triggered, you have someone to pull at and to have that person to respond to you. If you are out of the marital context and you are triggered in some kind of way, you're going to find yourself pulling at other people to the point that you may have multiple partners a year. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. So the marriage market, evidence of commitment is necessary before sex. So this was years ago. Today, it really doesn't apply today, because everyone is basically given into sex. There are a few people who will abstain until marriage. A few in terms of percentage, but mostly everyone is into having sex prior to commitment for a number of reasons. For unmarried dating people, this typically refers to someone's socio-sexual orientation. So that basically means you are not necessarily willing to have sex early in a relationship, and then there are some times that you would have sex early in a relationship. So individuals with a more restricted socio-sexual orientation require more time in relationships before having sex with partners and are less likely to enjoy casual, uncommitted sex. And you can expect this in the sex market if casual, uncommitted sex is part of the sex market, unless you find someone that you can actually date long term, and then you two can both negotiate when sex would be on the table. As age plays a major factor for the pursuit of certainty and stability, both sexes pursue the marriage market. So alpha males tend to resist the marriage market. They tend to, because there is an oversupply of unmarried women. The sex ratio hypothesis holds that an oversupply of unmarried women in a community or group gives men therein considerably more power in romantic and sexual relationships, which translates into lower levels of relationship commitment, less favorable treatment of women by men, and a more sexually permissive climate wherein women receive less in exchange for sex. So basically, when there's an oversupply of unmarried women, sex is not a problem to get. Any man can now have sex with any woman. In fact, because men are not really part of the households a lot of times, or there might be a wife that's more domineering when it comes to the daughter, is that too contributes to why women are more inclined to have sex before marriage. It used to be that historically the father in the home would restrict how his daughter how she dated all the way up until she was in like 18, 19, 20, even in college. Today the father is not in the home, is not too much in the home, or they are, if they aren't in the home, they are sort of checked out emotionally. And so we have all these girls, older women who are still operating like they are girls, seeking men to um, um, connect to, when in fact they really want a commitment. At the same time, you have all these women, when there's an oversupply of unmarried women, they're all also competing against each other for that man. So then that also contributes to how they might be more inclined to have sex early, because if there's a lower supply of men, they're going to do all they can, allocate every effort they can to secure that man in the sex market. So it can go a number of ways. Alpha males, for alpha males, alternatives are always available when there is an oversupply. And the opposite is true for alpha females. Costs of commitment are low. So once you lay down with that person, you have no commitment cost, really. The only commitment cost the only cost you might have is if you might contract something. So that means your minimum cost is a condom, right? Her minimum cost would be birth control. And you both have connected on an intimate sexual level, but now you have no relationship. And for some people, that's fine. They are okay with that. But as we noted, as I noted, that age plays a factor after a while. So here it is, you have had such a high body count, it's going to make it difficult for you to find someone who will be willing to be in a relationship with you. And the same is true for that person. So here is a reflection opportunity. Since men's interests are favored in the sex market, would you be willing to postpone dating for a committed relationship? What are your expectations for dating in the sex market? What are your expectations for dating in the sex market if there is a possibility that dating could lead to marriage? And then, do you want to marry an alpha male? The expectations for dating in the sex market is most important, because remember, the sex market is for sex. And what people do, they like to go into the sex market and say, well, I have every right to wait if I want to wait. Okay, you can wait, but that doesn't mean the person is going to continue to pursue you either. You can't go into a sex market when it is all about sex, about casual dating maybe, and always about sex. So you have to know your expectations. If you don't want to have sex with anyone, you may need to seek out a different type of partner. If you go to church, you may want to, seek out a partner there. Now, some folks are having sex in the church. So you always got to be careful of that, because you always got some sort of little sex demon running around the church as well. And so you have to set firm boundaries. If you really just want to be married, then you should be in, say, like a single club where you can prepare for marriage, right? And then pray and wait until God sends you a marital partner. Even then, though, you still have to prepare yourself, prepare your mind, because once you decide to get married, you decide to get married, and you have to deal with all of the expectations of marriage. So alpha males in their territories, they tend to be territorial. If you picture the lion, I always like the lion, the big cat in the jungles, the safaris. I think about the big cat, and what they do is when they come to an area, right, they smell that area and then they spray their scent. And so anyone who comes to that area would understand that there's already a family of cats there. The alpha cat or whatever, then the female, and then all of the cubs. That's the way I believe most men treat women, especially the women that they keep coming back and forth with, going back and forth with. And then alpha males overall, especially the ones who form a dating rotation, they definitely leave their scent on each of the women. There's always this expectation with men in general that they can always come back around to any woman that they've had sex with and still get sex again until the woman puts a stop to it. So let's look at territories. So a dating rotation creates insecure romantic attachments between an alpha male and the female partner. A secure attachment is one in which a baby, for example, feels free to explore its surroundings, knowing that its mother is near. The baby cries when the mother leaves the room, but is happy when she returns. So the insecure attachment is the fact that there is no commitment with the alpha male and each individual female, or even if he doesn't have a dating rotation, just the female. But a secure attachment would be commitment, relationship, satisfaction felt by both parties. An insecure attachment is one in which the baby feels and exhibits extreme anxiety and stress when near strangers or unfamiliar people. When the mother or primary caregiver returns, the baby is resistant to reuniting or shows little response. So when you have a dating rotation, you always have, again, one woman who feels like, why can't it be more? Why can't we, have a relationship? And then when the alpha male or the male says no, she'll go off to herself like a wounded deer, think about it, and then end up returning. When you think about 50 Shades of Grey, right, the very first one, and the woman character, the female character, wanted more. She was, I guess, willing to let him do the bondage stuff to her, but she wanted a relationship. Why couldn't they sleep in the same bed? Why couldn't they go out on a date? Why couldn't they hold hands? Why couldn't she hug him? And so he was trying to develop an insecure attachment with her, meaning that it's not going to be commitment based, but it was hard for him to do because he was falling for her. He was falling in love with her. And so whatever preconceived ideas he had about her and what he could do to her and how he could date her for a year and that be enough, that was not going to stand the test of time with this one. This time he sort of ran into a brick wall. And that's what I feel with most men, and definitely alpha males, that if they don't pull themselves out of this sort of thinking about non-commitment, they're going to run into the brick wall, the crossroad moment. And what they do at that crossroad moment will determine if they have someone at the end of their lives. What does a dating rotation mean for a female partner? So alpha males tend to create insecure attachments. They might have a dating rotation of 3 to 6 women, even more, and they usually rotate the women out of each week or month. So they might use the women for cooking, finances, sex, but they will always use all women for sex. It doesn't matter. They could have a daily rotation of 9s and 10s, 7s and 8s, 5s and 6s, and anything below 5. But they're going to always use each woman for sex. That's something that is not going to change, because they feel like that is their prerogative. They, of course, do not establish emotional romantic bonds. So I like to use this arm's length relational bonding. That's how they keep the rotation, in rotation. Okay. Never letting one come in and affect them emotionally. They keep women at a distance. So if you, wherever you are now, stand up or sit down, extend your arms, right? Left and right. Just extend them to the side and up. And think about two individuals on the opposite ends of those arms. And the image you get is the individuals are close enough to pull and close enough to push away. So a lot of times you have this push and pull in relationships, especially when it looks like two partners are falling in love with each other, but they didn't intend to. They're not sure if they want to be in love. They're scared. So they'll do this push and pull, this arm's length relational bonding, as a way to soothe them of their fear. Eventually, though, you're going to have to pull the person towards you and address it. But again, that's why they have the dating rotation, because then they don't have to address any sort of emotional issues that come with relationship building. Alpha males signal their anxieties about closeness by pushing and pulling and pushing away women who need closeness. They signal extreme extroversion, the negative effects being that they are unwilling to contribute to partner investment and are more likely to invest in risky sexual behaviors. I don't understand how this happens. I do understand that someone can hurt you and it affects your self-esteem, and a lot of times people, as I noted in previous audios, a lot of times people throw water on your mirror to the point that you are so distorted you can't even see who you used to be. And somewhere you develop an attitude that I'm just not going to love anymore. I'm not going to give anyone anything, everything, almost for the rest of your life. You may not necessarily use the phrasing for the rest of my life, but subconsciously you might mean that. At the same time, when you feel those urgings for connection, that lets you know that statement you made was not a very certain statement, was not something that you truly believed in. You were just hurt. Somebody hurt you, somebody said something, somebody did something to you, somebody cheated on you, or whatever. But you decided, because of that one person, you're not going to contribute to any more partner investment. Well, that's going to be taxing after a while, and it's going to have its own consequence, because the more you continue to build rotations, and you do that the rest of your life for 20, 30, 40 years, you're not going to have a return on your investment. Sure, you will have all the sex you want. You can have all the sex you want with any and all of those women all day, every day, and 2 times on Sunday. But the connection and the closeness that you will feel you need as you age will be a lot different. And remember, that's a lot of souls on your body. If you've been having a lot of sex with people, that's a lot of souls. That's a lot of different energies. That's a lot of different attitudes. You know, there's a scripture in the Bible that says evil communication corrupts good manners. So the more you are exposed to a person, the more likely you are to become that person. You are more likely to take on their energy. And so sometimes you realize that you are depressed. Why are you depressed? Everything is going well for you. How is it that you are depressed? Because the person that you were connected to was depressed. Why are you angry all of a sudden? How is it that just you didn't start out angry? or bitter or mad or upset or frustrated, but somehow out of nowhere it's on you. It's because whoever you were having sex with or communicating or engaging, that person's energy has now gotten off on you, has not come on to you. And that takes some time because a lot of people project. They do a whole lot of projecting. There was this guy that I talk about in my other audios who used to mess with my self-esteem. And you know, he would mess with the fact that my face was round. Well, that's a trait in my family of women and men. You can have skinny people in my family, but they still going to have this round face. And you might think because the face is round, the person is fat. No, I was actually skinny. Then he would just do all kinds of other things to influence my self-esteem, to the point that I started to look at myself a lot differently. And I had to really start thinking, I got to, even if I don't believe it now, I have to say in the mirror. I used to stand in the mirror and just claim I'm beautiful, I'm wonderful, I look good, things like that. And I didn't believe it as I was saying it, but one day something on the inside switched and I started to believe it. And even if I wake up and I look, crazy, cockeyed or something like that or whatever, all I see now in the mirror is beauty. Well, there was another guy years later who is actually recent, and he was cheating. He couldn't let go of his ex. It was just a lot of, craziness and everything. And he something about him, he was just unstable. He couldn't stay on a job, and even if he got a job, he found a way to quit it or get fired from it or something. He has sexual issues, things like that. Well, once he left, once I kicked him out for good because of cheating, once he left, I started to feel like depressed and just all different types of weird emotions or whatever. And I just I couldn't understand it. It took about 3 to 4 years later for me to get it, that it was actually him who was feeling all those things, because I was never much of a person who got depressed. I'm not saying I didn't have like upsetting moments or crying moments or something like that, but not like a space and time and frame of depression that I have to continually manage myself and pull myself out of. That, because sure, the relationship broke up, maybe there was love there or something like that, but it wasn't so devastating to me to the point that I couldn't live and breathe and go to work and things like that. But just bouts, not bouts, but moments of depression would just all of a sudden hit me out of nowhere. It didn't make any sense. And I realized that it was in dealing with him, engaging with him, having sex with him, knowing him, all that kind of good stuff, that his energy got off on me. And that's something that you want to think about, because you being part of, say, a dating rotation can have negative emotional, mental, and psychological effects that you might not see until years later. And it might be when things are about to turn and go well for you that you now have to carry that along with you. So that's something that I want you to think about. So alpha males are going to manage the piss on the tree. It is their scent, of course, and that they consider themselves the CEO of their own company, which is, themselves as an alpha male. And all of their little women that they have are mission statements. So alpha male becomes the vision statement for them. Not achievement in other areas, but just calling themselves alpha male. I'm alpha male. I'm a high value man. I'm alpha male. That's the actual achievement for them. That's not achievement, of course, but they believe. See, if you're calling yourself alpha male, you are making yourself instantly successful. You don't have anything to really back it up. And it's becoming a trend. If you look at a lot of YouTube videos, you see just alpha male, alpha male, alpha male, alpha male, just men all calling themselves alpha male. But you don't hear them talk about their accomplishments in life, what they set out to do, how they did it, right? They're not speaking from a business mindset. They're speaking from a trending, popular social media, let's all call ourselves alpha male, even if we haven't accomplished anything type mindset. So everybody that they deal with become little mission statements. This person is a cook, this person is for companionship, this person is for sex, this person is for finances, and they try to make sure that they get the support the mission by keeping that kind of person around. Alpha males manage the larger vision of non-commitment, manage the mission statement. So there's a mission statement for the 10, there's one for the 9, the 8, the 7, the 6, the 5s, and below. They know that they cannot mess with a 9 and 10 in the same way that they can mess with a 7 and 8. They cannot use cost-inflicting behaviors as a way to push and pull the 9 and 10, because they know that the 9 and 10 is high value. Is a high value female, feels like she's an alpha female as well, and she has options. So they're going to do all that they can to make sure that they do not lose out on that type of person. Sevens and eights can be average, right, with 6 and 5s and below as below average. So they know that they can always get a 7 and 8, because not everyone is a 9 and 10. So they know that if they lose out on 1 7 or 1 8, there's always another 7 and another 8 around. Alpha males manage their interests in the mating markets, both sex and marriage. So here is a reflection opportunity I want you to consider. What are the characteristics of some of your ex-partners? Are they runners? Are they stable? Are they workers? Have you let an ex-partner back into your life just to regret it later? And then the last question, would you argue that the partner who came back but not to stay might have been retesting your boundaries? Because remember, they managed to piss on their tree. So if they felt like if they left a scent before, they're going to do all that they can to come back around and sniff again. And so when they came back around but decided not to stay, do you believe that was their way of seeing if they still had access to you, retesting your boundaries? So alpha males and cost-inflicting, they do not validate. And that's most important, because women oftentimes are looking for validation in relationships. No woman is looking for a man to be all up in her face, but validation for women means claim me. Don't call me just my name. Call me baby. Say I'm your girlfriend. Tell people that I'm your fiance, right? If you haven't met the mother or his family or something like that, you are nobody. If he's only saying that you are a fiance to him, to one of his friends on a job, unless he doesn't have any family members, then that's nothing, because you will likely never meet the person on the job, and he might not even care about the person on the job. So the alpha males do not validate. Validation is the intent towards ensuring mate retention within a romantic partnership, married or unmarried, and it can be both positive and negative when the goal is mate retention. So if the goal is to retain the mate, say for instance you're in the doghouse, and so you got to do whatever you can to do to get your woman back on the right track emotionally. So you'll bring flowers, you will cook dinner, you will sex her really good, take her to a movie, anything like that, because the goal is mate retention. So if you find someone not validating, that means that they are not willing, or their goal is not to retain you as a mate. They're just playing around, or they're just doing what they need to do to get what they want. They're passing time. But if their goal is not to retain you as a mate, they're going to invalidate your relationship with them. A different mate value, high or low, will be inclined to retain a romantic partner to prevent partner defection from the relationship and infidelity within the relationship using validation or lack thereof. Validation can be both cost inflicting and benefit provisioning. So the goal is to retain the mate, but the goal is also to keep the partner from abandoning the relationship. See, there's a time that when women, you can do something to a woman for a while, a long while, and she'll take it. You can do the push and pull back for a while. But then there comes a time when a woman is done. When a woman goes silent, she might still cook for you. It may not be the type of cooking that she did in the beginning when there was a lot of love for you, but she still might cook. She still might wash clothes and everything. She might even have sex with you. But when she goes silent, she's already planning her way out of the relationship. Even if she says something to you to pass the time, to fill in the gaps of silence. Now, when she goes silent, though, with you, she's already defected from the relationship. She's gone emotionally. Eventually, she is going to stop having sex. Eventually, she is going to stop cooking. It might turn into, it might convert from fully developed meals, things like that, to some little half thing pizza or some hamburger helper or something like that. But it's not going to be what she did before, because she realizes that you are not going to validate her in the relationship. So therefore, if you're not validating her in the relationship, she's not in a relationship with you. And she realizes that, and once she realizes that, it's a wrap. So cost-inflicting mate retention behavior, of course, includes that sexual jealousy, limiting the partner's social contacts, monopolizing time, and then derogation. Okay, cost-inflicting behaviors may decrease a partner's self-esteem, decrease the likelihood of infidelity, decrease a partner's self-worth, but may also encourage the partner to look outside of the current relationship. When I think about the alpha male with the dating rotation, there may come a time there is a woman among that rotation that he really wants to be with. It sneaks up on you. He might think he will never give in to that dating rotation woman, right? But something about her pulls at him, and he might be actually interested in keeping her around and really letting go all of the other women. But the problem is he has used so much cost-inflicting mate retention behavior that she doesn't have the same self-esteem that she had prior to meeting him and engaging him in this game. She may not have the same self-worth. So while she's been a member of his dating rotation, she also might have been cultivating a backup mate, meaning that she might have been dating too. Usually in certain relationships where there's a lot of restriction and there's a lifestyle of, bondage, BDSM or something like that, they usually don't want you to engage someone else. It's only them, you and that person, right? But she might have actually been dating someone else, because people look for validation. And if they can't get the validation from you, they're going to try to find it from someone else. And so therefore, you will often see the person looking elsewhere, because even the caged bird sings. Even the caged bird sings. That even in a cage, that bird is going to find some kind of way to sing himself out of the unhappiness that he is feeling. So cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors do have a consequence. You might lose that person in the end. Men of lower mate value may resort to the use of cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors, such as those that rely on manipulation, intimidation, and possessiveness. Men of higher mate value have more access to resources, so they don't necessarily have to use cost-inflicting mate retention behavior. They will most likely use benefit provisioning because they have the resources. So the men of lower mate value tend to be insecure. It's obvious. I feel like all people who have to call themselves alpha males are insecure. I feel like they are insecure. Why do you feel like you got to have that as a title, right? You have a name. Use your name, right? Build your name. You are basically substituting alpha males for your name. And your name actually has more power than the term alpha males. But when you feel insecure, you tend to grab at things. You tend to pull at things. You tend to find something that makes you bigger than how you feel or how you feel you look. And it never works because you have to stay within the mind frame of an alpha male 24/7, 365 days a year, no rest. And that is some self-inflicted thing that you are doing to yourself just to give off some appearance. And then what happens when you are in the grocery store and someone sees you regular? Okay, and then they criticize you for not acting like an alpha male, right? And so it's like the person who, the man who always has to wear a tie. Not men don't. I don't believe that there are men. All men love to wear ties. There are some men who will live in a tie their long life days or whatever. But just about every man has some kind of a collared shirt or a tapered looking shirt or something like that that they can put with a suit jacket, and then suit pants or with jeans, right? And then maybe some penny loafers or different types of shoes or whatever. And that's still high value too. But when you attach these titles to your name, and they're basically unearned, it's almost like you're trying to attach, like if someone was born into royalty and you're trying to call yourself a prince or a duke or a king or something like that. That's an unearned title. You're not royal. You haven't gone through a royal line to call yourself alpha male. That is just some made up name that you're trying to call yourself to make yourself look a lot bigger than what you are. So benefit provisioning, mate retention behaviors include compliments, expensive gifts, which is a form of validation. This means that men place greater emphasis on youthfulness, physical attractiveness, and they are more likely to perform mate retention behaviors because of age. So it is true, and I hate to say this, and I've had to, come to terms with this, that a man of my age, and I'm 46, a man of my age is not really going to be looking for a woman my age. They're going to be looking for someone younger in their 20s, right? And I had to come to terms with this. I heard a YouTuber say it, and I immediately didn't like it. And I didn't voice it or anything like that. I just thought it just seemed just a little bit mean, right? But I did understand it after I continued to listen to his spiel, and I listened to other YouTubers, kind of say the exact same thing, and they were all men. And it's rare that you'll find someone your same age if you're at middle age, because they're going to want someone younger. And they base the youth not just on attractiveness, I believe, but they base the youth on the person's ability and capacity to have sex. That they're already old, they want someone else who can that they would have to keep up with, right? Versus a middle-aged woman who may not want to have sex like that every day, all day, every week. Benefit provisioning, mate retention behaviors increase a partner's self-esteem, relationship satisfaction, and the unlikelihood of relationship defection. Higher mate value men use enticing to keep a partner invested, whereas men of lower mate value use behaviors to inflict costs for not remaining invested in the relationship. This is where I'm going to get off topic just for a minute, but this is what happens when women stay too long in abusive relationships. that one is using enticing and validation to keep the partner invested, but another is inflicting costs as sort of like a punishment for the person not remaining invested in the relationship. I always believe there is a time when you can get out of an abusive relationship. There is a door. It's never quite the person is holding you down, to the point that you can't leave. There's always a door. What happens is you don't have anything that you have worked on in terms of yourself to go to. See, he has the job, he has the money, he has the place, he has everything. And you haven't built up anything of your own to depend on. And then if you go and live with a family member, he knows what a family lives, but also the family member could be impatient with you. And so then that prompts you to not want to feel like a burden and then go back. But there's always a door. There's always a door. But what happens is when you roll over into the abuse too long and you stay too long, now it becomes about punishing you because you don't want to remain invested in the relationship. So I got to punish you. I got to continue to hit you. I got to continue to disregard the restraining order. I may even lock you down in the basement. I'm going to make sure that your family doesn't have access to you. I'm going to do all that I can because you have finally decided, or actually I realize as a man that you have finally decided not to remain invested in a relationship. And that's when it becomes very dangerous and deadly. So alpha males will not use benefit provisioning to keep a female partner invested in the relationship because they do not believe in relationship or long-term partnering towards marriage. They will use benefit provisioning to entice a partner to remain invested in the situation, and also use it to continue to participate in the sex market. So instead of relationships, there are a lot of situationships. And so they'll keep pulling and pushing and pulling and pushing just so you can stay in the situation. And a lot of times these alpha males and men in general who think like this, they're sort of holding you up as like a power trip because they feel powerless somewhere in their lives. They feel like it's like a person who chains you to their arm or something, or to their ankles, and you got to walk with them, whether they are depressed or happy, whether they are safe, financially sound. It doesn't matter. You are part of my situation, and you're going to stay part of my situation, and I really don't see myself letting you go as part of my situation. Well, that puts a halt to anything you're trying to accomplish. If you had a dream or something like that, it's not going to get done, because some things you need to get away from in order for you to thrive and move and navigate your own life. And as long as you are attached to a situation, just like, how is it that a woman can be a mistress for 20 years to a man who refuses to let go of his wife and divorce her? Because it's a situation. It looks like it's just momentary, but she doesn't realize it's been 20 years. It's almost like she needs someone to come along and show her the truth. If you remember, I can't remember the name of the film, but it was Tom Hanks in the film, and he was stuck in an airport, and Catherine Zeta-Jones was a flight attendant, and she had to go in and out and through the airport where he was, and I forget the name of the characters. And so there was a chance that she and Tom Hanks's character, who was foreign, could have a go at a relationship. But the man that she was attached to, who was married, her mind wouldn't let her let go of the situation. It's like most women who say, one of these days he's going to divorce his wife. I know he's going to leave her. I know he's going to leave her. He's not going to leave anything that is comfortable. He's not going to. And the way that he has validated the wife is by giving her a home, a house, a home, your finances. She has more power in the relationship actually than even her husband. The wife does, because he's going to make sure that he allocates every effort possible to ensuring that she is the one who remains validated. She's going to always have a house. She's going to always have a car. She's going to always have access to the family accounts. There's probably a life insurance policy or whatever. When she feels like she wants sex, she can get sex. But the mistress has no power. She thinks she is taking a man, a husband, away from a wife, when actually the mistress is the one whose life is on hold. Her life is on hold, and she will die a mistress. Whatever she is telling herself, she's going to die a mistress. And so the situation, I want you to think about that. That is very, disheartening, that you would rather remain in a situation than consider another opportunity where you can still be with someone who is not attached to someone else and thrive. However, their goals are largely cost-inflicting, mate retention, not necessarily derogating the partner, but creating an environment where the female partner is never psychologically secure, but instead emotionally dependent on the alpha male. Alpha males maintain their market position in territories in the sex market, and they're very good at that. They may not be the best businessmen, and they still could be that as well, but they know how to maintain the territories. All of the females who are interested in them as alpha males. So here is a reflection opportunity I want you to think about. Do you need validation in a romantic relationship? What if you never received validation? Would you remain in the relationship? Would it bother you that your romantic partner used benefit provisioning, mate retention with an ex-partner, or in the case of mistress with the wife, but uses cost-inflicting mate retention behaviors with you, meaning that person, they may be an ex-partner and it didn't work out, but they were willing to do all that they could to retain that mate. But now that they are with you, they're not willing to do all they can to actually retain you. How would you address the situation? All right, alpha males and productivity. So I believe that cheating has really become the new productivity for men in general, but definitely alpha males, that they use cheating and as an extension, employing members of a dating rotation as their new productivity. But it's mainly activity. It's really no different than a hamster on a hamster's wheel, running around, believing that it is actually achieving something, like it is actually progressing, but it's not progressing. It's just process. So alpha males are more active than productive. They tend to focus on quantity over quality. So as much as they say they want a 9 or 10 because they believe that is high value and quality is as an implied attribute, it's really still activity. It's not productivity, because if they wanted a 9 or 10, okay, marry the person, and then you will always have a perpetual 9 or 10. I don't think they want that. They just want to be able to date and do whoever they want to do, as much as however they want to do it. Alpha males date more women than beta males, therefore they have the data, the numbers to base their claim that they are productive. So that's why they kind of, get on YouTube and brag, or you see them in films a lot of times, they have so many women, right? And so they have the record of success, right? And I feel like that's more about success versus achievement. And I'm going to get into the difference. Alpha males drive up the numbers by changing out their dating rotation by using short-term mating strategies, such as rebounding or dating one or two women for a short time before they have sex. So rebounding is always a thing that people do because they feel like that's always an option. Rebounding is usually connected to when someone breaks up with a core person, they've been dating or been in a relationship for many years, and then they break up and then they go out seeking a rebound. And so that's a way to, develop a short-term mating strategy. You can also date one or two women at a time, right? Have sex, etc. Alpha males believe that they are only productive, however, when they date multiple women for longer than a month. So that's their belief. Okay, they would never say that it is being active if it's more than a month, right? I still believe it is more about activity than productivity. Alpha males who date women for at least a year may be perceived as being productive. Alpha males only date short-term and encourage short-term mating preferences. And then they're also not averse to mate poaching or attracting someone already in a relationship. So that's, alpha males, that term alone gives you sort of like this power you feel that you have, that you can have what you want. You can take whatever you want. It doesn't matter who it is. If you are able to take something from another man, that man is automatically a beta male. Because otherwise, an alpha male would never let you take his woman, right? But mate poaching exists regardless. You don't have to mate poach yourself. The woman could easily turn on that alpha male she's with to date you. And that definitely happens a lot. Alpha males are more productive in cheating than in the rest of their lives. They set their schedules and coordinate their many women just to get whatever they need for a moment. And they tend to struggle with momentary impulses. So you've heard men say that they want to screw everything that's moving, right? That they want to have sex with at least every woman at least once. I heard that from the talented the film with the actor Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he was saying that when he drove up in that car in Italy in the film The Talented Mr. Ripley, that don't you wish you could have sex with every woman at least once? And so that's sort of like where men tend to have a struggle with. Now, they may not consider it as a struggle. If they're having sex with every woman at least once, that may not be a struggle for them. That might not be considered a struggle for them. But it is perceived as you as a man not being able to control his momentary impulses, because you just can't really have sex with everything and not get consequences. Because one of these days you're going to lie with somebody that's going to give you something. And so that's why I believe that alpha males struggle with controlling momentary impulses. They do not have a growth mindset. They do not embody grit in their romantic lives, meaning that they're not willing to take one partner and just live the rest of their lives with that one partner. They are, and I feel that because they do not have their personal lives in the right place, in the right context, in the right frame of mind, in the right soundness, it'll show up in business. That they are less likely to utilize grit in business, even if it appears that they are winning. They are really not concerned with the numbers for business, because as long as they are getting their romantic needs met, even if they have dating rotations or whatever, they're more inclined to stay productive in that mindset than in their business mindset. And so they are most likely to turn over the business, so to speak, and not give it up, but just turn it over to someone else and let them do all of the hard managerial work. So Duckworth and Groves, I teach this in my English classroom suggests that people in general struggle to control momentary impulses when they do not exercise self-control, which is the capacity to regulate attention. That's what it means, that if you are struggling to control momentary impulses, you lack emotional regulation. Their thesis is self-control and grit are correlated but not identical. So we've been using self-control and grit as interchangeable. We believe they mean the exact same thing, but they don't. They're correlated, meaning that there's a correlation between the two, but they are not completely identical. Self-control entails aligning actions with any valued goal, despite momentary, more alluring alternatives. Grit, in contrast, entails having and working assiduously toward a single challenging superordinate goal through thick and thin on a time scale of years or even decades. So let's look at self-control for a minute. Self-control. So if you're getting a degree, a college degree, you just need self-control to complete all of your coursework leading up to that degree. But setting the vision to have a degree could be grit. It could be, interpreted as a grit, right? Because it's going to take you a number of semesters and years and coursework to complete it. Self-control could be you want to enter the field of engineering, for example. Well, everyone in any field has to go through the entry level. Entry level is usually 2 to 5 years, mainly 2, but at least a range of 2 to 5 years. Well, you're going to have to exercise self-control, especially if it's a valued company with a name. You don't want to quit that job. And plus, you don't want to get fired from that job. So you're going to do all that you can, allocate all of your effort to making sure that you keep that job, right? Put in the time, pay your dues, etc. But if you desire to become CEO of that company one day, that's going to take grit and it's going to take vision, because it could take you 25 years. I've heard people who are CEOs of companies now, they started out in the mailroom. They stayed with the job for 25 years and worked their way up the career ladder from the mailroom to the CEO office or chair of the board. But it took 25 years. Okay, that takes grit. It takes vision. Beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can become CEO, right? So the self-control is you making a distinction between the valued goal, the goal of getting the college degree, right, versus the alluring goal, the goal to quit before you get the college degree, versus grit, working on a single challenging superordinate goal. So like a superordinate goal, you don't need to set a high level vision goal to contact a city to fill all of the potholes. You don't need to, set that as some sort of superordinate, some sort of long-term 10, 15, 25-year goal. Okay, you can just call down there, put in a petition, visit maybe or something like that, and it just requires self-control to not get mad at somebody. But the crises we have with Russia messing with our elections, Russia just in general, Syria, now we have a pandemic. Okay, that's going to take years to solve. Even think about the fact that we had a 1918 pandemic, Spanish influenza, and now we have a coronavirus 2020, and look at how much time it's going to have to take us to resolve that problem. It's not going to be done even in 2021. Okay, those types of goals are going to take some years to resolve, because if we don't resolve those goals in the right way, we're going to see this thing come back around again. So there's a difference between self-control and grit. All right, so grit is having the larger vision in mind, whereas self-control is the mission of managing the self through temptations. It goes back to like the CEO and then the mission statements, right? So if we're going to solve the Syria problem uh, with the war conflict, etc., then it's going to take more than one country to come together. It's going to take the United Nations, multiple countries, organizations, Salvation Army, Red Cross, and we're all going to come together to try to solve this larger vision, and they're going to each reflect smaller mission statements. Grit is connected to growth mindset, which means the ability to embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, and learn from criticism. By contrast, fixed mindset means avoid challenges, give up easily, and ignore useful feedback. And we're going to go into more detail. So here is the chart, changing our mindset chart that I usually use in my classroom. And if you look at the first column, it is fixed mindset, and then the second column is growth mindset. And with fixed mindset, you have to look smart in every situation, even if you're not really smart. You have to succeed. You consider yourself a failure. It becomes, identity based. Again, avoid challenges. You tend to get defensive. Nothing is going to change. You ignore constructive criticism. You feel threatened by the successes of others, and you plateau early. With growth mindset, you stretch yourself by taking risks and learning. Your question is, will this allow me to grow? You don't look at failure as identity. You just basically say you'll try harder the next time. You tend to embrace challenges. You understand that growth and learning requires effort. You learn from criticism because you understand that it's going to lead to improvement. You will find those teachable moments, right? Those lessons and inspiration, and then you are more inclined to reach ever higher levels of achievement. The last row reminds you of a bodybuilder or a person, athletic person or whatever, when they realize that they have plateaued and that they're going to have to push themselves to reach higher levels. Well, you can say the same in intellectual thinking, learning, etc. That when you feel like you have plateaued, the goal is to continue, not stop. To continue to read and read and read and read, write and write and write, receive criticism, realize that failure does not have to be part of your identity. Instead of looking smart, try to stretch yourself and actually grow. So alpha males employ no true self-control. They can have a larger vision in mind that may not have anything to do with maintaining a dating rotation long-term or seeking non-committal relationships. So it is possible that they can have a larger vision in mind, especially if they want to start a business, right? But eventually they're going to get off that track because the women that they are managing will take a greater priority, and and they're going to be so preoccupied with sort of sustaining that data rotation or the women that they have, because it becomes more about the women than the business, that they're going to be so far off center that it's going to be hard for them to get back. Alpha males exhibit a fixed mindset because they largely ignore constructive criticism about how they use women romantically. So, here, many times we keep hearing how women call men dogs, or women call men cheaters, etc. But you see, many men not moved by that. I would be upset if I was a man that someone was calling me a certain thing that was, derogatory. I would think I would want to change that viewpoint about me. But I'm a woman. Men don't think like that. Men think like how they think, and they think like that they have every right to screw anything that is walking. Alpha males exhibit a growth mindset because they are willing to receive constructive criticism regarding where to take their business interest. So they might actually That's what I mean by having a vision. They might actually be concerned about other areas of their life if they're failing at their business, etc. But I do believe when they get to a certain point where there's enough money that they don't have to make any more money, they stop making money. They stop doing business and they segue over here into some other area where it's all about entertaining women. That's why you see a lot of times these very rich men with their planes and it's just filled with women, because then it just becomes about women. So really, they didn't make money to actually have a business. They made money to have access to women and to have access to trips and going on islands and doing whatever they're doing and having orgies, etc. Alpha males struggle with grit because they will substitute one vision for another. Vision substitution is basically cheating, trying to get somewhere quicker without the work ethic. Alpha males will substitute the vision of perpetual non-commitment to romantic relationships over commitment and investment into long-term relationships leading to marriage. They will never get married. That becomes their vision statement. They will die unmarried. Now, it may not matter for an alpha male who feels like he still has a good friendship circle and has family, but it does says a lot that you don't have anybody close to you enough romantically that they could take care of you if you get sick. And that's what alpha males don't realize, and most men in general who leave women, to get other women, that they're going to get old. That time that they spent running their bodies down, having sex, drinking, drugging, traveling, all that kind of good stuff, they are going to get old. One day they're just going to wake up and it's going to be hard for them to pull their legs around or pull their backs up or, get in the shower or whatever. And none of these young girls are going to be the types of women who are going to do right by them. If they stay, it is because they want to make sure they get, their cut. But they're basically going to hire a nurse to take care of them. They're not going to, give them a sponge bath and give them their medicine, etc. Alpha males are guided more by their romantic interests than they are by their business interests. They will never get married, as well as that takes a greater priority. Alpha males are guided by their interests below versus the interests in their actual head. For example, the larger vision of becoming a doctor requires grit, that passion and perseverance for long-term goals. However, in the middle of one vision, the medical student will substitute it for going to law school instead, stopping the progress and jumping to a more alluring goal. So the value goal in this situation was medical school, but the alluring goal was law school. And so a lot of times we are guided by our alluring goals, something that catches our eye, versus the value goal that's going to take time to actually complete. The medical student switches out one larger vision or superordinate goal for another larger vision or superordinate goal. In essence, the medical student doesn't get anything done. Nothing gets accomplished. The medical student who leaves one progress for another has trouble with self-control and has no understanding about grit. So here's the quote: the alternative to exercising self-control is indulging in an action that immediately satisfies a goal but is soon regretted. The alternative to grit is following a series of different superordinate goals in rapid succession, law school 1 month, med school the next, or giving up on a superordinate goal because the means to the end of that goal have been blocked. So if you look at the idea that, it takes a long time to, go through medical school. I mean, you have your bachelor's, your undergraduate work, which is 4 years, sometimes 5, right, depending upon the major, or if you are, co-majoring or something like that. Then you have to get into medical school, which can take, a number of years. Then you get into your specialty program, and then you have to do your residency and tests. You have to pass, different tests. You have to get your license, etc. And here it is, right when you are about to finish and become a doctor, you quit. And then you say, well, it's going to take me just 2 to 3 years to finish law school, so I think I'm going to go to law school. Okay, law school is just as hard, even though it may not take, you know, eight, eight, 8 to 16 years, but it's still hard. But it's funny that you will go all those years in med school, specialty, residency, passing tests, etc., and quit. I think about the guy who was in the Hangover movies, the Asian guy. He's a doctor for real. He's actually a real medical doctor, but he would rather be an actor. Now, he's not a bad actor. He's funny. He's funnier to me when he's with an ensemble cast, but he's actually funny. But he did all those years and to be a doctor, training for it, and he doesn't want to actually practice as a doctor. I wouldn't trust him to be my doctor if he hasn't been practicing all these years. I see that a lot of times with politicians. They're doctors in their fields, but then they decide to run for office. Well, you didn't really prepare for that. That's why I feel like they are not always that effective, because they didn't really prepare for that. They went to become a doctor. They didn't have, a lot of times you don't see them with a double major in political science, and they don't have any track record of working in political science. They just realized one day, I think I want to, become state senator or U.S. senator, right? But they have no real preparation in it. They are a physician. So that's something that I think about a lot in terms of when I am setting goals, sustaining goals, making sure that I am where I'm supposed to be. Pursuing men and women becomes the goal that alpha males pursue instead. So how does vision substitution relate to grit and self-control? So alpha males, I believe alpha males stopped somewhere in their progress. I think they were offended or hurt somewhere in their previous relationship. If you look at the previous quote about the means to an end were blocked. So for instance, maybe the med student had passed every test but the one to ensure that they get their license to practice medicine beyond the residency practicing. And they said, okay, well, you know what, if I can't pass this test the second round, I'm just going to let it go, and I'm just going to go on ahead and pursue becoming a lawyer or something like that. That's what I mean. They could also in terms of stopping somewhere in their progress, hurting somewhere, it's so relative. Not everybody is hurt over a breakup, right? But there's something in you that was something from the past that is driving some of the decisions you are making. You would like to call what you do as a natural thing. There's nothing wrong with having sex with different women or whatever. Not everybody is supposed to be married, all that kind of stuff. You have these little statements that you make, but somebody did something to you to switch your thinking. I don't think you are birthed with this ideal, okay, when I grow up, I want to become a pimp. When I grow up, I want to become a prostitute. When I grow up, I want to have sex with every woman imaginable. When I grow up, I want to sell drugs or something like that. You're not birthed with that belief. That belief is socially nurtured. So even if you feel like you weren't hurt, or the hurt that you felt is not a contributing factor, somebody projected something onto you. Somebody projected some kind of belief system onto you, because you don't have a long history of doing that from the time you were a child. So I just kind of think about those things. They experienced an unexpected loss. How does vision substitution relate to grit and self-control? Again, so how alpha males have adopted a new vision of not committing to anyone, even in friendship. They manage their um, day-to-day temptations to be fully successful in business interests that require grit. Alpha males would have to change their mating strategies because you need a good sound place. So I do have a scripture here, Matthew 9:17, and it is about old wine and new wine. So alpha males cannot bring old systems of beliefs into new environments. So if they do decide, if an alpha male who has a dating rotation of 5 to 6 women decides that he wants to marry either one of those women or someone else, he has found that he's going to have to break communication with those members of his dating rotation, because he can't bring that old thinking into a new context, into a new environment. The new environment would be the new woman, right? New thinking. All right, so here's the scripture. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break and the wine runneth out and the bottles perish. But they put new wine into new bottles, and both are preserved. So old bottles are those old beliefs, ignorance, misunderstanding. New wine is that new insight, wisdom, and understanding. So here it is. You want to be with this new woman, and you don't want her to be part of a dating rotation. Then you can't bring your old thinking from the dating rotation days into this new relationship. You're going to have to completely change your thinking. You're going to have to undergo the process that you halted in seeking out these dating rotations, right? So the only thing you have learned to date is how to manage a dating rotation, how to live and thrive in that activity, but you haven't learned how to be in a romantic relationship with a single person. And so it's going to be a struggle for you, because you're thinking you were successful in one area of your life in terms of farming, managing, and succeeding at having a dating rotation, and you're going to think that success is going to spill over into this success over here with the new woman, and it's not going to work. You're going to say things, do things, expect her to act a certain kind of way, and then it's going to turn her off because she's not a member of a dating rotation. She can be high value, she can be alpha female, it really doesn't matter, but she's not part of a situationship. She doesn't think of herself as a situation. And so you can't bring in old beliefs, old systems of beliefs into a new situation. Alpha males cannot use short-term mating strategies and exercise non-commitment in environments that require long-term investment. It is for this reason that they have no business being in the marriage market. Alpha males essentially are fixed-minded people who are unwilling to change their perspectives on life and love. They will hold down a job, start and endure a business, even become rich and wealthy, but they will die without true connection. They put on a face, a persona. They act out what they believe to be what good living is. They look smart, look very successful, but they are not truly successful in their hearts and minds. They lack peace. So for homework, I want you to think about that chart I gave you, and it's here now. Can someone with a fixed mindset change to a growth mindset? So I use that question when I teach this in my composition classroom. Journal your beliefs about whether people can change their mindset. So you might say yes because you are hopeful that a person with a fixed mindset can change to a growth mindset. You might say yes because you don't want to be negative, right? But you also got to look at the fact that there are certain things that you're going to have to change about your fixed mindset. Even if a lot of the stuff that you see here, the ideas that you see here, are manageable under the fixed mindset column, there is one row the criticism role that you're going to have to really address, right? That you ignore constructive criticism. I believe that a fixed mindset can change to a growth mindset. You would have to address every role under fixed mindset, but if you were choosing your battles, right, and you wanted to focus on one or two areas, I would say, focus on the challenges role, like avoid challenges. You tend to get defensive, but I will focus more on the ignoring constructive criticism role, because that's how you actually advance. You know, if you can't take instruction, I mean, criticism, then you're not going to advance in anything that you do. This audio right here, if it's speaking to you, if you believe you are an alpha male and you believe all this time that you've had it going on, right? You thought you had the right idea, and I'm showing you that you really don't have the right ideal about things. Maybe not everything for you, but at least a few things. Then it's constructive criticism for you, especially the idea about bringing old ways of thinking into new ways, into a new environment. And so you would have to address your ability to receive constructive criticism in order for you to even get on the other side of growth mindset, where you are learning from criticism. Because if you look at it like this in terms of instruction, if the platoon leader says forward march, and you don't forward march or right flank march or left flank march, and you don't right flank march or left flank march, you are not moving forward. Try to get the visual in your head, like the whole platoon has decided not to move forward. And the only way that you can advance in life is if you obey an instruction, which will require you then to move forward. So the constructive criticism is it's kind of like a shepherd, keeping you on the right path. That's why you have the dog out there on the farm, to support that system of instruction, so that the sheep get to wherever they're going to get to, or the sheep get to where the shepherd wants them to get to. So in conclusion, alpha males will burn out, because the more you spend time running on that hamster's wheel, it's going to wear you thin, it's going to wear you out, and you're going to look up one day and you're going to see you haven't accomplished anything. So to the non-alpha female, alpha males are out of your league if you care about morality and marriage. Alpha males are not inclined to wife a female. Alpha males work better with alpha females. That's what I kind of believe. It is called assortative mating, where the belief is that that tens mate better with tens and fives mate better with fives, and it tends to focus on facial attractiveness. I honestly believe that a 10 can marry a 7 or 8, but the way our society dictates youthfulness and facial and physical attractiveness, if you're going to operate at a 10 level, you got to look like a 10. And I honestly hate saying that. And I honestly hate admitting that some people who have said that are right, that you're going to always feel some kind of insecurity if you are a 7 or 8. It's like the person who has a husband who is churning, trying to get life right, trying to become famous or something like that, become an actor. And as he is moving up the ladder, he's changing. He's looking different. He's getting a better suit. But the woman looks the same way she looked when they first met. And I've heard many people say that as he moves up, you need to change your own look. And like I really do hate that. But if you're going to appeal to a certain target group, you do need to look like something. I'm not saying you need to look like Wonder Woman somebody, but you definitely need to look a lot different than what you are. And for me, that's my goal right now. As I put together these audios, I'm working on other areas of my life, especially how I look in terms of how I wear my hair, if I'm going to wear makeup, a certain kind of dress. I'm gonna have to change a lot. Now there are some things I'm just not going to change. I'm not going to be able to keep up. If you look at Kim Kardashian and some and other celebrity women, they they can keep all of that look up. I'm not going to be able to keep that up. It has nothing to do with age. It's just I really don't care. I'm not going to be able to keep up that sort of tight um, uh, leather pants wearing, heels like up to the nines or whatever. I'm not going to be able to keep that up. But there is a look I can keep up. And I'm not saying I couldn't attract a 10. But I do understand that 10s mate better with 10s. And I've heard people say that average people mate better with average people. So I hate making that statement. I don't like that statement. You can challenge that statement, but it seems to be one that kind of sticks. Alpha males will never let a female take them. Alpha males have to control the ship and captain the passengers. Lastly, alpha males have a false sense of stability. Creating and maintaining multiple backup mates will not ensure long-term psychological well-being. Alpha males will soon burn out. So let's get into a YouTube discussion about fixed mindset versus growth mindset. So based upon the discussion on alpha males, answer the following questions. What is your mindset about romantic relationships? Do you have a fixed mindset? Do you have a growth mindset? And remember, fixed mindset is that you don't believe your ability can change. That abilities are fixed, and you avoid any challenge. Right? You want to look smart. Uh, Growth mindset, you believe your abilities do change over time, and that you embrace challenges. You are willing to take constructive criticism to improve. Add your comments after this video. You can respond to one or both questions. All right, so hopefully you were able to gain insight from this video discussion. Please like, subscribe, and visit. So please like the video, hit the notification bell for more discussions. I am re-uploading all of my audios, so I needed to make some changes to them. You can visit my website for more content at reginayfavors.com. If you want to send me an email, you can send an email reginayfavors@yahoo.com. Please also purchase the book. It's going to come out in spring 2021. So I had to make changes to my book to update it, and I also updated the title. So the original title was Bait, Hook, and Switch: Confessions of a Rebound Girl, and I have updated the title to Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships. So right now I'm still basically editing it, and I want to make it available in spring 2021. So thank you very much for visiting my channel, and I am Regina Y. Favors. Have a great day.